Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this week's County Executive Weekly Media Briefing. I'm Nordea Lewis with the Office of Public Information. As a reminder, this briefing is being recorded. We do have our County Executive, Mark Elrich. We don't have a special guest today, but we do have Sean O'Donnell, Deputy Chief of Public Health and Human Services, and Dr. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, who could answer any questions you guys have. With that, I will pass it over to our county executive.
So thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us again today. I think, as you know, this Friday I'll be sharing my recommended operating budget for the next fiscal year. And our press conference is going to be held here at the Leggett Executive Office Building Auditorium at 10 a.m. And I hope you all will come and join us. Between the impacts of the state budget deficit, the uncertainty of what new costs and new revenues may come from the state, and the unprecedented but needed funding request from MCPS, this has been a budget preparation process with a lot of tough decisions and more difficult than any budget I think I've done up till now. We conducted 11 budget forums last fall and received robust communications and engagement from our county residents and community organizations. Our forums were held around the county geographically at our regional service centers, but we also had targeted forums with the Black community, the African American diaspora community, Asian and Latino communities, one dedicated to schools, another to nonprofits, and another for seniors. Needs throughout the county are increasing, while the cost of providing services also continues to increase. Yes, the county government, just like all residents in the private sector, all of us feel the impacts of inflation and high interest rates. And now with these unnecessary tariff wars, those pressures aren't likely to decrease anytime soon. The good news is that recent federal funding decisions are not significantly impacting this budget, but we have to expect that over the coming years, we're going to face mounting economic challenges to our county, our region, and the state. Income tax revenue is based on the year ending 12/31/2024. It's probably reasonably good. Obviously, though, serious federal layoffs will impact our tax receipts for the next budget year, which will be for the year that ends in December of 2025. And the creation of tariff wars and a possible recession can make next year even more complicated. So this budget is prepared without major new initiatives in the county government so as to reduce potential pressures over the coming year or years. However, this is a unique year to prepare a budget because, as I said at the beginning, we're not sure how much money we will have until the end of the General Assembly session in a few weeks. This is really unprecedented because usually you know what the taxes are going to be and what our revenues are going to be. And there's not normally an annual shift of major costs to the county, nor is there normally an annual proposal to significantly raise potential revenues. But by our charter, we have to submit a budget proposal to the council by March 15th every year. So as you're going to hear on Friday, we'll be able to be very upfront with both the council and our residents about how we will have to adjust once the state decisions are clear. No one looking at what we're going to introduce on Friday should assume that this is the final shape of the budget. We know that when the legislature over the following almost 3 weeks makes decisions about new taxes, new tax revenues, and programs that they want to shift from the state to the county. One of the big ones being increasing our retirement, our share that we would pay of teacher retirement by, in one proposal, $21 million, and in another proposal, $42 million. These are costs we haven't borne before. So all these weigh heavily on how we're going to create our final budget. And that's why we can't create a final budget today. The budget process is still one of the most important responsibilities we have, and the decisions we're making and with the approval of the council deserve media coverage so our residents have a clear understanding of the proposals and of the decisions. In other news, I want to start spreading the word about a life sciences job fair for displaced federal sciences that's happening on March 31st at Montgomery College. They will host the event at the Germantown campus, and it's going to go from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Leading employers like American Type Culture Collection, Charles River Laboratories, Mesoscale Diagnostics, Miltenyi Biotech and Millipore Sigma are going to attend. In addition to job connections, attendees will be able to access services like resume reviews, professional headshots, and employer presentations to assist job seekers in their career transitions. County leaders across Maryland have started working together to raise awareness of employment opportunities and job fairs like this. I encourage everyone to visit the State Department of Labor's website, where we are among several counties and municipalities updating the public about opportunities like this. The website is labor.maryland.gov/federal workers. So that's the state website where you can get more information. Work in life sciences industry is critical to our economy. And for decades, health companies have been bolstered by the amazing work done at federal agencies that call Montgomery County home, like the Food and Drug Administration and National Institutes of Health. To see so many jobs in these critical organizations threatened for no good reason should anger all Americans. I have seen the firing letters, and there are people who have worked there for years who are being fired. These are senior scientists, not just people new to the field. And they're not being fired for cause. That is a boilerplate letter that says you're being fired because you don't meet the needs. And so a firing for not being able to perform and meet the needs doesn't disqualifies you for unemployment unless you fight it. There have been no interviews with these employees. There has been no systematic resume review. Many of these employees have, just sterling resumes going back years, and all of a sudden they're being fired for a cause. It's really alarming. I talked to somebody who was saying one of her partners in work had received a promotion, and despite having worked for the agency for over a dozen years, when you receive a promotion, you're on probation. And so when they said fire all the probationary employees, they just didn't fire the new person coming in. They're firing people who are serving in promotion status and are still during the probationary period. So it's kind of astounding. Like many others in the community, I'm astounded by the attack on NIH and FDA and research programs that they fund with universities across the country. It's sort of like, who in their right mind would oppose research on healthcare advances that can deliver cures that mean life and death for people? It's not logical. You'd think this would be, one of the most bipartisan supported things that the federal government does. But as I read through some information about NIH's work, and they're pretty upfront about it, it became pretty clear why they're being targeted. Curing people involves literally doing research, finding a cure for a disease, which should have universal approval, but it often involves finding the cause for the disease. And this is what Trump and his large industrial buddies don't want. Research into causes of health problems often leads to pollutants in our air, our water, and our food. Think about tobacco, asbestos, DDT, PFAS, microplastics, red meat heavy diets, to name a few. Research into causes leads to proposals to limit or eliminate those things that cause disease. Those proposals lead to regulations. And if there is something that the Trump administration wants to do, that is to eliminate regulation. And eliminating the knowledge gained through scientific research also eliminates the basis for creating regulations. So basically what they're trying to do is to kill the messenger. We should not forget that major corporations have forever fought, often hiding evidence that they were fully aware of, against regulations that would reduce their profits, even at the cost of human life. Whether it was smoking and lung cancer or discoveries that climate change was being caused by fossil fuels, this is unwanted information for those who stand to profit from being left alone. NIH and FDA are the messengers, and this is the administration's effort to kill the messenger. If not for the clinical trials and research being done by these civil servants year after year, we'd still be in the stone age of medicine. I was reminded of that this past week when I saw Dr. Francis Collins attending the Rally for Science in DC. I've invited the former NIH director to join me in a couple of weeks to discuss with you how these layoffs and funding cuts are going to impact the work being done by NIH and others. The rallies we've seen in Silver Spring and Bethesda to support federal workers and programs over the last few weeks are a sign that the Trump administration is going to continue to face more resistance. Activism is needed to help fight for the rights of those being marginalized by the people in power. The actions of this administration are an affront on many levels and deeply concerning to many of our residents and neighbors. And a federal government shutdown would only make things worse. In the midst of all this volatility, the last thing we need is in our livelihoods is more limbo. I want to thank our congressional delegation, Senators Van Hollen, Alsobrooks, along with Representatives Raskin, Ivey, and Delaney, as well as Governor Moore's administration for all of their work and engagement to support our federal workers. Earlier this morning, I was at a police headquarters for a press conference announcing the expansion of our Drone as First Responder program in Bethesda. Nothing indicates a success like replication, and it's been 15 months since the first Montgomery County Police Department drone began flying over Silver Spring to help police respond to emergency calls and relay critical information to officers who are responding. Since its inception, the DFR, Drone as First Responder program, has expanded to protect people living in Wheaton, Montgomery Village, and parts of Gaithersburg. So in a spoiler alert, my coming budget this Friday will add 2 more drones to our program. This program has been developed into a national model recognized by ACLU in balancing effective public safety with transparency and accountability. And I want to give my colleagues in the police department and on the council for credit for working together to make sure we address public safety and privacy issues at the same time. It's an example of something that we were able to get to an agreement with by working with each other, because we both know that both public safety and privacy concerns are important, and we don't need to sacrifice one for the other. For example, these drones are never on their own patrolling from above. They just don't cruise down the street looking at people and taking photographs and using computers to identify the people who they're photographing. Rather, they are almost always prompted by a resident's call for service. And while they respond to calls, the camera is pointed up and not in surveillance mode. Also, every call is mapped and maintained on a website for public scrutiny, and the films from every one of these drone flights is available within 24 hours. So we're very transparent about this program. If you're wondering how it's being used, you can go online and actually see that. So far, this program has flown over 2,000 calls, and around 70% of the time they arrive before the first responding officer is on the scene. Once the drone arrives over the head, the pilot can begin to provide information to responding officers on the ground in real time. This allows the officers to respond more efficiently and safely for themselves and for members of the public. We could provide example after example of incidents where arrests have been made based on drone information. There are instances when limited personnel resources can be diverted based on drone observations prior to their arrival. When a drone discovers that there's nothing happening or something is reported, it means you don't have to send the drone people there to respond. Finally, there are also calls where responding officers can take a more cautious, more cautious approach that's appropriate to the situation the drone's observing. And one of these examples is a phone call that came to the police department about a person waving a gun around in public. And we got the call, we dispatched the drone. The drone arrived there before the police did. The drone discovered that the person was waving around the camera, not a gun. So when the police arrived, they did not have to arrive in a mindset they were dealing with a person with a gun. They knew they were dealing with a person with a camera. So those are the kind of little things that can make a big difference in outcomes. And that's one of the real positives of the drone program. It really informs the police better in how to respond to the situations they're being called into. As we prepared for launch of the Bethesda drone, we held public meetings about the drone program at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School last summer to earn community buy-in and to address questions or concerns from the residents. The drones are one of several tools we're using to improve public safety, and we'll continue to embrace new technology and use the techniques that work to prevent crime. Drones help us save time, resources, and they cannot, but they cannot replace an officer. I want to thank Chief Yamada and the MCPD leadership who have embraced this addition to the department. We saw crime drop 7% in 2024. Property crime dipped 6%. Motor vehicle thefts dropped 15%. And carjackings plummeted 43%. There were also fewer homicides in 24, 19 down from 29 in 23. Those trends have continued into this year, or in some cases actually accelerated downwards over the first few months of 2025. So a lot of credit to the police department for the work they're doing, a lot of credit to the community for participating in many meetings in the community we've held about not just drones, but about crime and safety in your communities. So we're not going to ever stop working to try to make the situation better. This is one place where you can't ever be good enough. So we will keep trying to get better. Want to give a little bit of update on our climate change. On Tuesday, we updated the community with our Climate Action Plan annual report at a presentation at Walt Whitman High School in front of students in the Leadership for Social Justice Academy. I enjoyed talking to these students, and specifically the conversations I had with many in that event. Made me feel good to know that we have so many young people in our county who are engaged and caring about climate issues. Montgomery County declared a climate emergency back in 2017, laying the groundwork for its commitment to bold climate action. As one of the people who voted for that, I can honestly say we set goals, but in 2017, we didn't know exactly how we were going to get to the goals. But we did have confidence because we were already seeing at that time that advances in some of the things that could make things greener, major advances in solar panels and the beginning of a large scale uptake of solar panels, changes in insulation, changes in energy efficiency, new equipment coming into the market over these years. It's all kind of vindicated the approach that over time we are moving toward things that are going to improve the climate. We just have to implement them. But we didn't know that completely in 2017. We have a lot better picture of it now. And today, it's even better than it was when we implemented the Climate Action Plan in 2021. Back then, hydrogen was kind of like a blip and wasn't really taken with any kind of serious planning. Today, hydrogen is a real thing, and the county actually is going to have 2 facilities that produce hydrogen. So our goal remains reducing climate gas emissions or climate change pollution by 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035. Ambitious yet, yes, but I'm confident that we'll certainly achieve the 2035 goal and make major progress toward the 27 goal. The plan charts the way to meet the county's climate change goals, become resilient to a changing climate, and address environmental injustices of the past. The county has started 78 of the 86 recommendations in the Climate Action Plan and made significant progress on or completed 55 of the actions. As always, money is probably the biggest limiter on progress, along with commercialization of new cutting-edge tech that could bend the cost curve in a more favorable direction. But we're definitely moving in the right direction, and we can actually see the progress. You can see this chart, Montgomery County's climate progress and emissions inventory. The last report on the chart, this chart includes the period from 2005 and 2020. Despite a 13% increase in population during that time, greenhouse gas emissions actually decreased 31%. We get our emissions data from Metropolitan Council of Governments, and 2020 is the last year that the data has been published. This data is supposed to be taken every 2 or 3 years. So we're expecting the data from 2023 that should come out later this year. And here's a closer look at the pie chart that is in the graphic that shows the breakdown of where our greenhouse emissions come from. 24% comes from residential buildings, 25% comes from commercial buildings. So our built environment is pretty much 50% of the emissions. Transportation is 40% of emissions, and solid waste treatment is another 3%, and then wastewater and ag and others combined for a total of 7%. So the big things, and the good news is the big things in this are things we can control. The sooner we change our cars to electric vehicles, the sooner these numbers start to go down and go down faster. And the sooner we implement higher standards, particularly in new residential and commercial buildings, but also take steps to require older buildings to gradually come into compliance. There is clearly a path forward, and attaining the goals is not something that is out of reach. It is something that we should be able to do as long as we keep our minds on it and keep focusing on providing the resources necessary to get there. I hope the pie chart's informing in some extent to understand what we're dealing with here in the county. Just a couple of weeks ago, for example, we enacted our Building Energy Performance Standards, or BEPS. I want to thank the County Council for the unanimous approval of these regulations. BEPS is a major forward step in achieving climate action plan goals. And with BEPS, we're striking the right balance, reducing carbon pollution and supporting jobs while giving building owners a clear, flexible, and fair path to compliance. Over the long run, these regulations will reduce greenhouse gas impact of building operations, addressing 15% of the entire greenhouse gas emissions in the county. We are only one of 14 cities and counties in the nation with these sorts of standards. Montgomery County Green Bank has deployed $37 million so far in clean energy and climate resilient projects, leveraging an impressive $130 million in total investment, with a 2.5 time return on private sector funding. This includes 60 projects across public, commercial, residential, and nonprofit sectors. The Capital Area Solar Switch program has successfully registered 1,843 households and small businesses to learn about solar and to participate in a group buying program. And the county has 3 microgrid projects at key locations: the Equipment Maintenance Transit Operations Center, the 6th District Police Station, and the Public Safety Communications Center. These microgrids will provide crucial emergency power in case of an extended power outage. To reduce our transportation emissions last year, we completed our zero-emission bus transition plan to transition the entire fleet to zero-emission vehicles by 2035. And to address greenhouse gas emissions from waste management, the county expanded its recycling and reuse program, allowing residents to drop off mattresses, textiles, plastic films, and durable medical equipment at the Shady Grove Processing Facility and Transfer Station. And so, last year we also launched the Climate Smart campaign, asking the public to sign the pledge that you're looking at to take small actions at home to reduce your carbon footprint. Changes like taking the metro or bus instead of driving when you can, recycling, switching to energy efficient light bulbs, and installing solar panels on your roof. All things that you can do to make a difference. As a county, we lead by example, but it would make an even bigger impact if more residents were participating in this. We will never achieve our goals if it's the county alone that has to clean itself, because we could turn every vehicle into electric. We could green up every single building to be a zero emissions building in the county government. But if those steps aren't taken by individuals in their homes or by businesses in their places of business, then it is going to be extraordinarily difficult, if not impossible, to achieve our climate goals. So this is one of those times when everybody needs everybody. We all need to contribute, and all of us together can make a difference. And we have enormous benefits on the other side of this. If our example helps other people do the same thing, and we can spread this more widely across the country, we actually will have a better world to hand off to our children and our grandchildren than the one we're about to hand them. And I don't think anybody should feel too happy about what we're about to hand our kids, because it's not pretty. We've got a year of horrible weather to kind of prove what's going on, not just here, but around the country and the world. And with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to my health team for an update, and then media questions.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Very brief update this week. We are finally seeing our flu hospitalizations in the county and across the state begin to come down. They're still at a very elevated level, and I know people have been following along in the news. Flu can still have tragic outcomes for people of all different ages. So if you have respiratory symptoms, please stay home. Please use PPE, please wash your hands and use good hygiene. That's all we have right now. Happy to answer any questions, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Stoddard for any additional updates.
No additional updates. We can go to questions.
Thank you both. Right now, we will take any questions from the media. Please just raise your hand. Any questions? No questions? Okay, I think we are good. Mr. County Executive, is there anything else you have to say?
Nope. Thank you, everybody, for coming today, and see you hopefully on Friday.
All right.